Calling to order this regular board meeting of the Cordova Recreation and Park District. If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I'd like to welcome Gary Vorst to the podium from the PRMID Oversight Committee.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Hi, Gary.
Good evening, members of the board. Chair Lineback, I am thrilled to welcome Gary Vorst tonight. We want to honor him for his service on the PRMID Oversight Committee. And Gary is actually one of the first community partners I ever met here at the district. So I feel like we've known each other a long time and seen the district grow and change quite a bit. But I want to give you a little background on him and then have him say a few words. And then we have a certificate for him and a photo with the board as well. So Gary was appointed in 2010 to represent the Rosemont area, Zone B. He was twice elected chairperson of the Oversight Committee, and he's been a wonderful community advocate and a liaison in Rosemont. He's been so wonderful on the committee. He has a great understanding of the budget and the zones. He asks a lot of questions. He has a wicked sense of humor, but he has a strong community voice, and that's really important on that committee. We really appreciate it. He's a park user. He's an advocate of our parks, and he's always been very supportive of the district and of staff as well. So we really want to thank him for that, and we're really going to miss him on the committee. We hope he goes on to wonderful things, and so we just want to thank him very much and invite him to say a few words.
Thank you, Danielle. I like how she tossed in that word wicked. It's one of my favorite words, wicked. I have been around for a long time, and you guys have been just pillars of the community as well as I am. The parks, being in the Rosemont area and some of the things that, from the time that we first moved to Rosemont, dealing with the RCA at times, Doug Holland at times. I mean, I've always had a soft spot for the park district, and I've always defended the park district. And I think you guys do a wonderful job. I think that the parks are beautiful. I think that, there's more things that can be done with the park. I'm glad Measure J passed. That was one of the things that I wanted to make sure that we really pushed. And I know Terry has been at some of our board meetings, quite a few at our board meetings, and I'm a very outspoken advocate of the CRPD. But I thank you for the opportunity. I know you guys will continue to blossom. I'll still be in the neighborhood, still be doing some things, but before I leave, I'll definitely let you know and leave my mark. But thank you very much.
Thank
you. I'd like to just say, Gary, I really appreciate your leadership, your commitment, your stability, your advocacy, and your ability to say the good of the community comes first. And that was very important to us. It's not a matter of agenda. It is how can this best serve our community and in the Parks District. And you are right. You always gave us, the Park District, a chance to explain, and you always did support us in the process. I really appreciate that. Sad to see you go, but who knows? People go and they show up some other way.
Exactly.
But leadership is your cup of tea, and your community also has a lot of respect for you, and you bring people together. So I hope that every time we are in Rosemont and their annual gatherings or food trucks or whatever, that you are there. And it's also good to hear the voice. You speak for the community. I've spoken to you many times, and you've said, well, and that's really the role we need you to play. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Inez.
You also cook up a
if I-
great hot dog.
I will definitely be there for the hot dogs. So stop by, and Rick, I promise they'll be good.
Yeah, and, and to add to the contributions you've made to the Park District, you make those same contributions in your own community on the RCA board, and you just really committed to doing what you can in your way to making our community better, and we truly appreciate it. And you do it over and over and over again. You're very dedicated to making the community a better place for all of us, and we thank you.
Thank you, Terry.
So we do have a certificate for appreciation for 7 years, and we'd like to invite the board down for a photo with Gary. Yes, absolutely. This is a certificate of recognition awarded to Gary Vorse with sincere appreciation for 7 years of service and commitment to the PMRID Oversight Committee, awarded this day, the 20th of December, 2017, from the board.
you.
Thank you.
Along this area here, so a little more light. Yeah, just because this blocks a lot of the light. So, come up just a little bit more. Yeah, right there. Okay. All right, guys, big smiles. 1, 2, 3. We're gonna do one with the flash. 1, 2, 3. Excellent. Thank you very much.
Can I get an 8x10 glass here?
Everyone autographed it.
Yeah, I will. Until I leave.
We'll send it with the shirt for you.
I got a shirt.
Oh, no, he got his shirt. I work there now.
Yeah. But yeah.
Okay, if we can move on to the roll call, please.
Thank you, Chair Lineback. We received advance notification that Director Danzel would be absent this evening. Director Sloan? Present. Secretary Yearwood?
Present.
Vice Chair Reyes?
Here.
And Chair Lineback?
Here. 2 heres and 2 present. Okay, now we are on to board disclosures on action items. Are there any disclosures the board would care to make?
No.
Seeing none. Item B, comments by the public on non-agenda items.
Thank you, Chair Lineback. Members of the public may address the board on district topics not listed on this agenda. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. It is a violation of state law for the board to discuss or take action on non-agenda items. Board members may only briefly ask clarifying questions or refer the matter to staff. And at this time, I do not have any speaker cards.
Okay, thank you. Without public comments, we will then move on to our consent calendar, items C1 through C3.
Thank you, Chair Lineback. Consent calendar items are considered administratively routine and will be acted upon in one motion unless separate action on a specific item is necessary. The chairperson will consider any requests for discussion on the items prior to approval of the consent calendar.
Is there a motion?
I'll move that we accept consent calendar C1, C2, and C3 as presented by staff.
Thank you, Vice Chair Reyes. Thank you, Director Sloan. Are there any questions or comments on the consent calendar at this time? All right, a roll call vote, please.
Director Sloan? Secretary Yearwood?
Aye.
Vice Chair Reyes?
Aye.
Chair Lineback?
Aye.
And Director Danzel is absent.
We move on to item D on the agenda, presentations.
Thank you, Chair Lineback. Item D1 is a presentation of certificates to the Board of Directors by the California Special District Association, Special District Leadership Foundation, Recognition, and Special District Governance. And from the CSDA, I'd like to welcome Dean Wadley.
Welcome, Bean.
Good evening, board members, staff, community members. As Daniel said, my name is Dane Wadley. I'm a field coordinator with the California Special Districts Association. Here tonight on behalf of the Special District Leadership Foundation to present awards to you. So everybody wins. Before I start, though, I just wanted to make a note and say thank you to the board, first of all, for your guys' commitment to CSDA. I've seen obviously a number of you at our conferences and our events and staff as well, annual conference, training events, et cetera. It's, CSDA really relies upon the engagement of its members to enable us to do what we do. And you guys are one of those leaders, and we sure do appreciate it. So thank you so much, first of all. Turning to the award ceremony, the Special District Leadership Foundation, excuse me, is dedicated to promoting excellence in special districts through recognition programs, and we have 4 recognition programs. One of those, of course, being the Recognition in Special District Governance program, which is why I'm here tonight. This program is designed to honor board directors, trustees, and it's comprised of 2 components. The first, and probably most significant, the one being the completion of our Special District Leadership Academy, which is a basically 2.5-day conference that's the Leadership Foundation puts on 3 times a year at various locations throughout the state. And there's 4 courses in that conference, a class on governance foundations and community leadership, and then the board's role in HR and finance. So it's having gone through it myself too, and you all know, it's a crash course to say the least. And even those of us in special districts who have been in the field for a while kind of walk out and go, oh boy, there's a lot of information. But of course, it's that big book you get to take home too, and the connections you make, which is the value, long past the conference. So, obviously it's very important and shows all of your guys' commitment to the community by taking your role seriously and going through this training. But one of the things I like to point out as well. As you're aware, CSDA, is an advocacy association for you downtown in the Capitol. And one of the things that CSDA kind of encounters in that environment, and of course in other environments, media, et cetera, is, boy, what are special districts? Are these special districts, are they doing what they're supposed to be doing? Do they know what they're doing? And when, we have individuals who go through our recognition programs and go through this training, as you're aware, it's not just, sign a piece of paper and then we give you a certificate. It's a rigorous program. When we have people who do that, it sure makes our efforts a lot easier in the Capitol and communicating what special districts are. So again, thank you for going through this and taking time out of your schedule to take this extra step and then ultimately support our efforts and how we represent you in other arenas. So really appreciate your guys' commitment. I understand I have 4 of them right now. I understand one board member is in the process of getting his, so look forward to coming back here. Don't want to call anybody out. but look forward, obviously, to coming back and making a presentation again, and we'll have the whole board. So at this time, I'd like to, on behalf of the board and the staff of the Special District Leadership Foundation, present the recognition in special district governance to Directors Reyes, Leinbach, Sloan, and Dancel. So I have your certificates over here.
Pictures of you with them? That'd be great. Yeah. Do you want to give it, do you want to picture one by one? Yeah. Okay. Why do you?
So I'd like to have you guys together.
Okay, very good.
Are we going to reprint the catalog, the brochure from the?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It'll be on there.
You guys can take a step forward.
Yes, exactly. I've got lapel pins too, so those are mandatory for every subsequent conference. Is this good here?
Yeah. Yeah, angle down. Yeah, there we go. Right, 1, 2, 3. Director Yearwood.
Yeah, I'm sitting in my chair.
One, allowing one.
You're not gonna see a flag?
If you want to angle it down just a little bit. That's good. All right.
Terry, we got yours, guys?
Director Lineback? I'm gonna have you guys come one little step forward. There we go.
Very good.
All right, if I can have you just angle it down. There we go. Yeah. 1, 2, 3. Oh, I was gonna allow one for each director.
Make sure you're in
One
mine.
more. 1, 2, 3.
I want to see yours.
Is it like right between the?
I appreciate that you had different poses for each one. Yeah.
I'll think of you. Do you want me to accept one?
Yeah.
Floating head
We're gonna have you
between
guys,
you and him,
one step to your left. There we go.
like this one,
All right.
the thinker.
No.
Yours or?
It's okay. I'm gonna angle it just a little bit down. There we go. 1, 2, 3. Thank you, Director Yearwood.
I see you moved on me.
1, 2, 3.
Make sure those ones get in the grapevine.
Let me do one with flash.
Nobody will ever see the picture.
One
but
more.
make sure it's in the
1,
grapevine.
2, 3. All right, thank you very much.
I just want the certificate. I don't need the folder. You can recycle that. Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Very much, thank you. I don't know when he did that. Okay.
We will now move on to item D2.
Thank you, Chair Lineback. Item D2 is a presentation by staff of the Cordova Recreation and Park District 2017 Year in Review, and I'd like to turn it over to Finance Manager Matt.
All right, good evening, Chair Lineback, board members, staff, community. What a year, we made it, right? We made it. Come on, give everybody a hand, we made it. And so what we did is we got dressed up, well, one of us got dressed up for the occasion. Not everyone got the memo. And so we put together a video of moments that happened throughout the year. Because as hardworking individuals that we all are, what we do is we go from project to project, from task to task. And we don't do that. We don't take that moment to stop and like appreciate exactly what happened. And so what we're going to do is take all those moments and for the next 5 minutes, appreciate all that happened this past year. So I'm going to go cue it up and here we go.
I like that.
nicely done. Thank you so much. Yeah, we appreciate seeing all those, images again. I mean, I think, obviously the staff was at all of them. The board was at a great deal of them, though, and that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we
And it
didn't-
shows, just how much has been done in a single year. A tremendous amount of work has been done by you guys. So thank you.
That is true. How quickly we forget. We go from one pain to another, to a project, and so this is really neat. I think you did a great job, not only featuring staff, featuring facilities, but also thanking them, and recognizing them. Very nice, very nice. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we are, I guess, moving on to committee reports now. Item E1.
Thank you, Chair Lineback. Item E1 is a standing committee report. The PMRID Oversight Committee nominations, which met on December 11th, and that is Chair Lineback and Vice Chair Reyes.
Okay, I'm going to start, and Chair Lineback is going to continue. So what we did was we met with staff, and we received, I believe we went over 6 applications. And from that, we were able to find, write, how would you call this, nominees that we'd like to bring to the board and ask the board to appoint. There were 3 positions that needed to be filled. One was in Rosemont, another one was in Riviera East, Larchmont, and one of the 2 positions for Ranch Cordova. And so what we did was staff and Director Lineback and myself, we read, we looked, and we're going to come up. We have a recommendation that we'd like to take to you, to the board in H2, I think, item H2.
And, obviously, when you have interested community members wanting to get involved with the Park District, it's just thrilling. And our big takeaway from this is, since we couldn't appoint or ask the board to appoint every applicant to this PMRID Oversight Board, we strongly hope that the staff will encourage them to join the Friends of Cordova Parks, which is also in need of volunteers to help the Park District. But since this is an action item later in the meeting, we'll leave our report at that point.
Thank you.
Okay, and then item E2?
Item E2 is an ad hoc committee report for the 2017 District Administrator Evaluation Review, and I'd like to invite Secretary Yearwood to report out from the December 16th meeting.
Director Danzel and I met. Isn't that about all I can say? I mean, and discussed what we were discussed.
You might mention that this item will be taken up in closed session.
Thank you, all right. It's a closed session item. So, I'll tell you all about it now.
Okay. Yeah, so this is, in fact, the administrative evaluation is a closed session item. It will be taken up by the full board in closed session later tonight. So it is true that, Secretary Yearwood is somewhat bound by not being able to talk about the events at that committee.
Chair Lineback, if I would like to even just express to Director Yearwood and Danzel, this was a very, very smooth process. And it was worthy of knowing that with your help, the whole process did not take half as long or as tedious as the previous evaluations that we were faced. So just wanted to acknowledge that and thank Director Yearwood and Danzel for their hard work. You're welcome.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah.
Now, item F is public hearings, of which there are none. So we will move on to the regular calendar. Start with item G1.
Thank you, Chair Lineback. Item G1 is to adopt Resolution 17/18-25, amending the full-time and part-time salary and hourly rate scales as required by California Code of Regulations, Section 570.5. And I'd like to welcome to the podium Resource Manager Andrea White.
Thank you. So before you, I have an item you've seen several times. It is an amendment to the salary scale. We will do this at least once a year for a few years as the minimum wage increases annually. This year, effective January 1st of 2018, the minimum wage has increased from $10.50 an hour to $11 an hour for an organization our size. So we have amended the part-time scale that you can see in the resolution on the second page of the resolution. Last time that the minimum wage increased, we just increased the lowest paid positions and increased them up to the $10.50 an hour. This time, the entire scale has been amended because if you do that too many times, then some people who have a higher level are making the same as an entry-level position. With that said, the obvious question I think comes up is how much do part-time employees make compared to full-time employees? And now we're starting to see an overlap where an hourly rate of a part-time employee can exceed a full-time employee. And that is something that we need to critically look at and proposed amendments for the new budget year. In fact, we may want to do some sort of analysis to see if we're in line with other like agencies on pay. However, it is to be noted that the highest paid positions on the part-time scale, these individuals can only work at the district for 999 hours. So in essence, in an annual basis or even on a monthly basis, depends, they could, I guess, work full-time hours for a few months. On an annual basis, they would not exceed a full-time employee's wage rate or salary. And of course, they do not receive the benefits that a full-time employee receives, which does have a high value at the district. So that is the first item that is being changed for the salary scale. The second item is we are adding a marketing and communication specialist, and we are adding this to two positions that have to do with communications onto our scale. We've learned that there will be a vacancy. There is a vacancy in the communications manager as of July 1st, and soon there'll be a vacancy in the coordinator position. And this position that we're proposing is somewhat of a hybrid between the two of them. It's not a department head, and it's not a coordinator. This is a specialist who will still report to recreation at this point, and but will have a higher level of responsibility for marketing and even some sponsorship duties than our current coordinator position. So we'd like to add that position. I don't recommend taking the other two off. They'll remain vacant, but we'd like to add this one and recruit for this one if it is approved this evening. And the third item is for the district administrator salary, and I will, it has his salary must be listed by law on our salary scale. So if it's amended this evening, then I'll have to amend this document and make sure that it's included in this, and that will be discussed later this evening. With that, if you have any questions, I otherwise recommend that we adopt Resolution 1718-25.
Any questions or? I do have just a clarification that other than adding a job title here of marketing and communications specialist, or not a job title, but a position.
Correct.
This is the salary scale that was approved in the budgeting process this year for the 17-18.
Yes, for this position, for the marketing and communications specialist,
No, no, I mean, this has been added, but the scale itself
the whole
is,
scale.
hasn't changed other than adding this position. Is
That's
that
correct, for
Okay.
full-time salaries.
All right,
That's
so just,
correct.
it's only the part-time hourly
That's
scale that's
correct.
being changed, okay.
I have a question.
Sure.
So you said that the other two positions will remain empty.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, if this person pans out and we're happy, is it something like they would move into one of those, or would there be a third person?
We are, just to answer the question, it is not I guess what they call a track position, I believe that's what they call it. It's not in a series of positions. This is, we're going to be recruiting for a specialist. If it works out that our needs are greater than what the specialist can provide, we are growing here, so there could be an opportunity in the future for a communication manager position to come back into our needs category. At that time, this person in the position would be encouraged to apply, but it is not an intentional thing for having this person trial it and see if they're going to jump into that position. It is going to be a standalone position, and hopefully with this marketing communications component, we'll get our needs met on the district level with that position.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? So may I have a motion, please?
I move the Board of Directors adopt Resolution 17/18-25, amending the full-time and part-time salary and hourly rate scales as required by California Code of Regulations, Section 570.5.
Thank you, Secretary Yearwood. Thank you, Director Sloan. Roll call, please.
Director Sloan? Aye. Secretary Yearwood?
Aye.
Vice Chair Reyes?
Aye.
And Chair Lineback?
Aye.
Director Danzel is absent.
Okay, we'll now move on to item G2.
Thank you, Chair Lineback. The next three items will be presented by Park Planning and Development Manager Laura Taylor. Item G2 is to authorize the district administrator to release the Lincoln Village Community Park Walkway Construction Project for informal bids and execute a construction agreement with the lowest responsible bidder.
Chair Lineback and members of the board, thank you. So this is definitely following up on the presentation of now that we've already taken our 5-minute celebration moment of the things we did in the past year, we are ready to move ahead with 3 new projects right off the bat here. So item G2 is that staff is recommending that the Board of Directors authorize the district administrator to release the Lincoln Village Walkway Construction Project for informal bids and sign a construction agreement with the lowest responsible bidder. This project accomplishes both goals of the district's ADA transition plan as well as for Measure J. A portion of this project completes access to the fitness park course project, which is the next project I'll be talking about. And that, so a portion of this walkway project is funded by the City of Rancho Cordova Community Enhancement Funds that were allocated to the park course project. District planning staff has completed all of the design and construction documents for this project. We are making a couple of adjustments in the area leading into the Lincoln Village pool to match their ADA requirements we have going into that pool. So we will make those adjustments before we send it out for the informal quotes. Because the budget for this project is under the $175,000 threshold, it falls into the Uniform Public Construction Cost Accounting Act requirements for informal bidding procedures. So per the UPCCAA and district ordinance, staff will send the bid notice to all contractors on our list of qualified bidders. We collect a list of of qualified contractors that submit their information to us, and that's how we get this information out without necessarily going through a public advertising process. The Park District anticipates the bidding of the project in January of 2018 and commencing construction in February. The construction period will be 60 days, and of course, if there's weather issues, that will postpone that, so. Anyhow, that completes my report on the Lincoln Village Walkway project. If you have any questions, please let me know.
I have a question. So the dash lines here that we're looking at, those are existing pathways right now that are going to be replaced with concrete, I take it, right?
That is correct.
And the park course is going to be that spot where right now is an empty, right
That is
by the
correct.
senior center?
Yeah,
Okay.
the empty play bay that's up near the front, near the parking lot.
What is the one that goes in the middle here? This one here?
Uh-huh.
What is over here?
So that's a parking lot that's in the back of the park. And in the future, we will be talking to the board about an idea to bring that parking lot up to standard because it's been closed off and for a number of years. And we do have a need for more parking in the area. So that's a project that we'll be talking about in the future, probably in the next budget request cycle.
Good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there a way to combine these projects to try and, sweeten the pot by making it a larger project and maybe invite a more competitive bid by making it
Talking about
larger?
the three projects that's in your package tonight?
Yeah, well, I can see how the Hagen one might not really fit, but the two Lincoln Village
They would
ones-
be utilizing separate contractors, subcontractors. So it's actually more of a benefit for the district to bid it the way that we have separated it out than to combine them together.
Okay, thank you.
They're also, Measure J is going to pay for a portion of this project?
Yes, Measure J pays for the majority of this project.
They will? Oh.
Okay.
So I'll go ahead and make a motion. I'll move that the Board of Directors authorize the district administrator to release a Lincoln Village Community Park Walkway Construction Project for informal bids and execute a construction agreement with the lowest responsible bidder.
Thank you, Vice Chair Reyes.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Secretary Yearwood. Roll call, please.
Director Sloan? Aye. Secretary Yearwood?
Aye.
Vice Chair Reyes?
Aye.
Chair Lineback?
Aye.
And Director Danzel is absent.
Okay. We will now move on to item G3.
Thank you. Item G3 is to authorize the district administrator to release the Lincoln Village Community Park Park Course construction project for informal bids and execute a construction agreement with the lowest responsible bidder.
Okay, so this project came before the board in October 2017, where the board approved a memorandum of understanding with the city of Rancho Cordova. So the project includes construction of an outdoor fitness course in front of the Neil Orchard Senior Activities Center. The walkway improvements needed for accessibility to the park course will be constructed under a separate contract, which is the one you just approved. And per the MOU that was approved in October, the city will provide $76,478 towards this project. As a result of Senior Center public outreach that we did on October 25th, staff determined that the project scope must be upgraded to include resilient surfacing rather than the typical wood fiber surfacing. The resilient surfacing is necessary to ensure easy access by mobility equipment up to the new fitness equipment. The resilient surfacing is estimated to increase the cost of the project by approximately $40,000 for a total construction cost of $116,500. So park planning staff has had some dialogue with the City of Rancho Cordova representatives about the need to upgrade the surfacing and the estimated increase to the project. The city has indicated a willingness to increase the funding amount to cover 50% of the cost of the resilient surfacing up to a maximum of $22,900. So the City of Rancho Cordova's Community Enhancement Fund provides substantial leverage of CRPD's Measure J funding to make these improvements to the Lincoln Village Community Park. The original estimate, construction estimate, was $76,478, and that will be funded with the City of Rancho Cordova's Enhancements Fund. Based on the conversations with the city's representative during the week of December 4th, the city may provide additional funding up to $22,900. Let's see. The district's finance division will provide the board with a budget update through the appropriate monthly financial report for capital projects after the costs have been determined through the successful bid. And we've had a follow-up conversation with the city of Rancho, and we can dial in those numbers with perfect accuracy. So the result of this action will be that the budget estimate for this project, it does fall into the Uniform Public Construction Cost Accounting Act. So once again, we will use an informal bidding process. And then we will adjust the funding amounts stated in the MOU based on the successful bid amount. The Park District staff anticipates that the bidding for this project will happen in January and that we will begin construction in February. The project is anticipated to be complete well before the June 30th deadline that the city has to expend Measure H funds. So with that, I'll entertain any questions that you might have.
So I have a question.
Okay?
The surface over at Sun River Park Course, is the same resilient surface?
No, the one at Sun River is the wood fiber.
And we're not doing that because it's, all of a sudden it's now not acceptable?
No. So the population utilizing the Sun River Park course is slightly different than the population that we anticipate to use this one in front of the Neal Orchard. And also the residents of the Sun River Neighborhood Association that were instrumental in initially requesting that project in Sun River, they expressed an extreme preference for the wood fiber. And so that's why there's wood fiber under that project. And that, as you recall, was also a Measure H project. And so that was the model by which we used when we went to apply for the current project at Lincoln Village. But then after being at the Lincoln Village Senior Center and talking with the resident or the participants there, we realized this project really needs to have the resilient surfacing because technically wood fiber is considered an ADA accessible surface, but it's not as accessible as I think it should be. It's on a practical basis, okay? So that's why we decided that we're going to say, we need to do the right thing here. We need to bite the bullet. We need to talk about the extra cost that it will cost to put in that resilient surfacing and get it right the first time.
And I guess, decomposed granite wouldn't even be considered for this kind of thing because it could be, someone could fall and hurt themselves? Is that what our worry is?
That's a very good point, and that is part of the issue is that if children do climb on it, and they fall, then technically we don't have to have what you call a fall zone. We don't have to because you don't need it for adult fitness equipment. But there is the chance that a child could fall, in which case the decomposed granite doesn't meet that fall zone requirement. Or I should say, it doesn't provide a soft surface to land on. There isn't a fall zone requirement, but so it's kind of like we're killing two birds with one stone by putting the resilient surfacing in. It will address both the needs of easy access to the equipment by people who have mobility equipment, and it will also provide a safety factor if a kid was to be climbing on the equipment when they shouldn't be, but we all know how kids are, so.
I guess also because it's a community park compared to a neighborhood park, it'll get more use. And I guess being next to a senior center, hopefully the seniors are out there using it and getting exercise and so.
Well, they're very excited about this project, and the senior, what is it, the Senior Association, the Senior Advisory Committee, they provided a letter of support for the application that we gave to the city of Rancho.
What's the difference in upkeep for the two surfaces? A lot different?
Well, that's a good question. So wood fiber is technically, that's supposed to be raked out on at least a weekly basis. And, sometimes it's hard for that to happen. That's the way the wood fiber is supposed to be. The resilient surfacing, it's expensive to put in, but here's an example that I'm thinking of that says to me that the return on investment for resilient surfacing is much higher than wood fiber. And that is that there's a park called Waterbrook Park in the Villages of Zinfandel, and it's a very small park, pocket park with playground equipment, and it's almost all resilient surfacing. So that park's been there for over 10 years, maybe even 12 or 15 years. And the only thing we've done as far as maintenance or repair on the resilient surfacing was last summer, we spent about $1,000 patching some holes in it. And so when you look at the cost of that compared to the requirement to rake out the wood fiber, at least once a week and refill the fiber, I'm not quite sure how often we have to fill it. Once every 3 years. I think the return on investment for resilient surfacing is proving to be quite good.
So Hillside Park is resilient surface,
That's correct.
but it does have a lifespan.
Yes.
10 years, 12 years, something like that.
Well, right now we've got parks that's had it for 15 years, and we've made some patches.
That's all.
And we've got to do some sealing of it, but it's still holding up strong.
Okay.
Just to add to that, I think it was really important when we decided on going with that surfacing. We wanted to go beyond what was required with the wood chip. And instead of it just being the minimum requirement, we wanted to go above and beyond for the accessibility, especially with the seniors being there and being the primary users. That was a major factor as to why we needed that upgrade to happen. And as Laura put it, let's do it right the first time instead of regret that we put it in and then, get those complaints from folks that aren't able to access that equipment. So that would be not the best project. So we really did have quite a discussion about making sure that not only are we accessible, but we're also very friendly in order for us to have the folks use that equipment that we're going to have out there.
You good? All right. So the city may give us some more money? When will you know for sure if they're going to commit additional funds?
So we've had verbal conversations with Stacy, who is our contact over there, and she's spoken with the city manager. Per the contract, the MOU that we signed in October, the city manager has the authority to make approvals for additional costs up to 30% of the total project cost. And so that works out to be the $22,500. And so verbally, they've expressed an agreement to move forward with that. But of course, it's nothing guaranteed until it's all in writing. But we already have a meeting set up at the end of January after the bids come in to review with the city where we're at and make any adjustments that we need to make.
Okay. So if they, for some reason, say, well, we're going to pass on this, are we prepared to absorb that cost?
I believe so. I mean, I've been talking with Matt about that. In a worst case scenario, what might happen is that before we move on to the next project that's funded by Measure J funds, we might have to bump that a little bit into the next budget year rather than moving right onto that immediately.
Okay. And a real quick question about the resilient surfaces. Is there also that at Stone Creek Park?
Yes.
How is that holding up? Because that park definitely gets a lot more use than Waterbrook.
Oh, do you want to answer it?
Or,
I can answer it. I mean,
Okay.
I know because John Biendo, our construction inspector, has been working very closely with Horacio Oropeza in Park Services. And we've been very strategic in that when we have other park projects going on that have resilient surfacing, such as Hillside and Heron Landing Park, we make arrangements to get some of that material and go make the patches. And so at Stone Creek Park, they did a really wonderful idea of, it's very difficult to match colors perfectly. So when you have to patch an area that's been damaged, and unfortunately, once it starts to unravel, the kids kind of start picking at it and make it worse. So it's best to repair it as quick as you can. So they just cut out patterns, like fish silhouettes and balls and half moons and stars, and it looks great, and it doesn't look like it's a repair job. It looks like it was meant to be. So, so they just did that, I think, the beginning of last summer, and I don't think anything had been done to that park in terms of having to make major repairs to that surfacing for, well, since I've been here, so.
Okay. That's all I.
Is that Stone Creek that you? Yeah.
It's a pretty common product for parks these days. I mean, it's not like we're not a guinea pig pilot by any means with that type of surfacing. So it's.
Around each apparatus would.
The whole area would be the fall, careful, resilient surfacing.
Yes, everything
not just
inside of the
areas around it.
existing curb area would have the resilient surfacing.
I just wanted to make a comment here, and I want to commend staff in realizing that and taking a lot more time to understand the people or the audience, the people that will be using it, and especially toward in the senior center, and so I really think that's the kind of thinking we need, because in the long run, it does save the district, and at the same time, it serves the community, and I think that thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
I have one question that's perhaps more directed towards Matt, which is, Matt, would the additional funding needed be coming from that contingency set aside that's in the budget? Is that where you anticipate that coming from?
Well, it's either going to be continued with Measure J funds or possibly from the contingency, so we'll have to determine that when we get to that point.
So if it were Measure J funds, would it be because some other project wasn't ready to move forward, so you would use those funds instead?
Well, it's not, we plan for a plan, but timing of it just depends upon, weather and previous projects that were completed. And so things just kind of, the train either slows down or speeds up, and depending on where it's at.
Okay, so the intent would be that if there's room in those Measure J funds, that's where it would come from, and otherwise, then it would be the contingency?
Right, that would be the source,
Okay.
correct.
All right, thank you. Okay. All right, so if the board is done with its discussion, may I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion. Hope I'm on the right page here. 57. I move the Board of Directors authorize the District Administrator to release the Lincoln Village Community Park Course Construction Project for informal bids and execute a construction agreement with the lowest responsible bidder.
Thank you, Director Sloan.
Second.
Thank you, Vice Chair Reyes. Roll call, please.
Director Sloan,
Aye.
Secretary Yearwood,
Aye.
Vice Chair Reyes,
Aye.
Chair Lineback,
Aye.
and Director Danzel is absent.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move on to item G4 now.
Thank you. Item G4 is to authorize the district administrator to release the Hagan Access Driveway Construction Project for informal bids and execute a construction agreement with the lowest responsible bidder.
Okay, So this project is included in the capital outlay expenditure report for fiscal year 2017-18, and it is funded by Measure J. However, it's also leveraged by funding from the Folsom Cordova Unified School District to pay the district for damage that was done to the Hagan Access Drive in 2015. What happened was when they were building the high school, they asked for permission to run equipment down Hagan Access Drive to get around to the back side. And some of the equipment that they used was quite large and quite heavy. And so in our 2x2 meetings, we brought that situation up, and we agreed, and the school district agreed that there was some compensation due to the district for the additional wear and tear on the road. So there's a segment that's about 550 lineal feet that was impacted the greatest. And so that is the segment that is being proposed to be repaired with this project. The project is well-timed to be bid during the park's slowest time of the year, and it also coincides with the lull in the school district's sports activity. We've coordinated with the school district's facility staff. They are going to cooperate with allowing CRPD to utilize Lancer Lane while we close down the segment of the access drive to be able to make the repairs, which will help us reduce the cost of the repairs so that we don't have to leave half of the road open and close one half. So we're very excited to be working with the school district on that. So the project is funded by Measure J, and the project budget is $98,504. Once again, this project also falls into the Uniform Public Construction Cost Accounting Act. And so we anticipate to be bidding this project in January and starting in February. The project has 30 working days, weather permitting.
I have a question. During our 2x2s with the school board, we discussed this project a lot of times, and I think at one point I remember hearing about making the surface, preparing underneath to make it support more heavier equipment. Are we going with that scenario?
Absolutely. So one of the things the school district asked for was a geotechnical report and engineering study that evaluated the existing soils and prepared a recommendation. So right now, it's a 7-inch aggregate base with 3 inches of asphalt, which will support, fire trucks and trash trucks. And we've actually attached the geotechnical engineering report to the bid documents so that, they have full access to what that report says.
So that'll be that that one portion, portion leading up to it is not the same grade?
So that will have to be phased in at a later date eventually. I mean, to repair the entire Hagan Access Drive is approximately $500,000. So, we'll have to phase it in over time, repairing segments at a time.
It's not normal to have big giant rigs that are that heavy on there, except maybe during the 4th of July.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The 4th of July is the main thing.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I just have one quick question. So you're going to rip that entire section out and redo it all, right?
That's
Not
correct.
Laying something over that.
No, we are ripping it out.
There. Okay, good.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the worst spot.
So is there any way that we can, how would you call it, put some form of, for projects or events or so that might be using heavy equipment? The school at least acknowledged it was right there, and you see the cost. But the question I have is there any way, District Administrator Larkin, that we can have a little bit of an ability to get some revenue for contingency? I mean, to save up for that?
So, we do.
Example, on the 4th of July, let's say, if they use so many, or when is it, Cars or whatever, they have those different shows that might be using heavy equipment.
So we do have park entry fees. And so there are certain ordinances that we follow. Those big RVs that sometimes are permitted into the park, which really aren't permitted, those need to be cracked down a little bit. And so in order to prevent the wear and tear of it as much, we can look at potentially recovering some of those costs to make sure that we have enough money in the future. It would just be a matter of Matt and myself sitting down and finding out a strategy that maybe we use some of the revenue sources that are used through picnic rentals or the kiosk as a way to kind of get siphoned back into a savings account or something along those lines to add to the CIP projects. But I mean, we can always creatively look at that going forward to make sure that we're prepared for when the time comes with the life cycle of it all.
Yes, and it's like deferred maintenance or reserves, and that, not to make the cost prohibitive, but at the same time, to be responsible to stewardship of the park. Thank you.
So I have my usual finance question. There's a statement in here that 50% of the construction costs were credited to CRPD by Folsom Cordova. So did that credit occur in a prior fiscal year, and therefore, just, with the fiscal year having 12 months, the funding is coming directly from Jay?
Yeah, so about a year and a half, 2 years ago, we entered into an understanding with the school district about shared costs, and there was multiple things, variables that were part of this overall net number that came out of it. And so some of it was our responsibility, some of it was theirs, and so we calculated what that was out. And we actually became on the negative side of that general ledger. So we're making $25,000 payments to the school district for 3 years to cover that cost. But the overall, their portion of that project was part of that net number.
Yeah, I know at that time it was
Thank
like
you.
the water main.
Yeah, the water
They were
crack,
big
the connect-
projects.
they
I
had a
remember
piece-
sitting on the 2x2s with that, where
Yep.
there were big projects that CRPD had to share in the cost, and it
It was
worked.
a Comcast line that they trenched, and then also the water main, exactly.
Yeah, the water main that they had to split up the water so we get different bills.
Okay, thank you.
So I'll go ahead and I'll move that the Board of Directors authorize the district administrator to release the Hagan Access Driveway Construction Project for informal bids and execute a construction agreement with the lowest responsible bidder.
Thank you, Vice Chair Reyes.
I'll second.
Thank you, Secretary Yearwood. Roll call, please.
Director Sloan? Aye. Secretary Yearwood?
Aye.
Vice Chair Reyes?
Aye.
Chair Lineback?
Aye.
And Director Danzel is absent.
Okay, we will move on to our last regular calendar item, G5.
Thank you, Chair Lineback. Item G5 is to authorize the district administrator to execute a consolidated contract with Republic Services for waste management and recycling services. And I'll turn it over to Park Superintendent Jerry Dobbs.
Okay. Chairperson Linebaugh, members of the board, basically here to talk trash. What has happened historically is that we've had several different agreements that were initiated by several different supervisors, and some are no longer with us. And the concern I had was that we were getting seven different billings from 7 different sites, and I wasn't sure we were treated fairly at that point. So doing some investigation, we brought in Republic Services to speak with us, and we found out that we could go ahead and consolidate all the billing into one bill. But more importantly, we found out that we were eligible for governmental pricing, and thus be able to reduce our billing significantly, and hopefully be able to use some of that funds to go ahead and initiate a recycling program within the district. I'm excited about that aspect of it, but I'm also excited about having less bills and invoices to sign and keep track of. I feel very good about this effort. It's taken us a while to get it all together, and I appreciate Matt. He's done a nice job on the chart here, and Republic Services have done a nice job going ahead and giving us the cost, county cost or the governmental cost. At this point, we felt like we needed to do this as an agreement with Republic Services because we just opened up a brand-new park, Heron Landing, which requires a dumpster. And so instead of us signing a brand-new agreement and having 8 bills, we felt it was necessary to go ahead and have an agreement that covers any type of services that deals with trash and recycling within the district into one contract or one agreement. At this time, I'd like to go ahead and entertain any questions that you may have.
Trash is trash.
Well, I don't know, I just, to get into the, the weeds. So the monthly average, is that per dumpster? Is that what that number is? They charge $154 a month per dumpster? I mean,
But basically, it depends on the size of the dumpster or a roll-off that we have. Some are 8 cubic yards and some a little bit more of a smaller units, some are 20-yarders. It depends upon the site, like Hagen has the largest ones that we do have. And therefore, it's a little bit more of an expense. But the amount that you charge per ton is going to be the same. So that much, I feel very good about that. Now, there is also a little bit extra fee, though, that is tacked on, depending upon the distance that they have to travel to go to our site as well as to their landfill. But they've been very good to work with. It's just taken us a little time to go ahead and get this all together. And when we found out we were eligible for governmental pricing, we went ahead and pushed on it pretty hard. So grateful to get that.
and I'm kind of interested in the addition of recycling services, which I think is, really great. Can you describe that? Is that cardboard recycling or is it all kinds of recycling?
It can be any type of recycling, and a lot of times they do construction debris recycling, like concrete or asphalt. But the other thing that we're excited about doing is getting paper in our offices. About 60 to 70% of our waste stream is going to be paper.
Right.
And then we have cardboard that can be recycled as well. The rate of return that we get from that may not be a whole lot, but what we have is that we're actually sending out a message that we're environmentally friendly, that we're green, and this is something that we want to set forth for our communities, be participants in. We already have we have lots of recyclers out there right now. They help us in our waste receptacles right now, to be honest. But for us in the offices, this is something that I like to go ahead and encourage, that we can go ahead and do this and do our part to reduce the waste stream. And when you reduce the waste stream, what you do is reduce the amount of tipping fees, and you don't have as much money going out toward just dumping trash into the landfill.
Jay,
great.
we explain the on-call. What's the on-call?
On-call is when, it's like what we did this past Saturday. We went ahead and had a dumpster brought out to Heron Landing because we had a large group of folks out there. And that was an on-call situation where we had it just for that one day, a special-sized dumpster, before we went ahead and had one permanently put in place.
This 336 it's not a monthly fee. It's just a one-time
It's a one-time.
fee that you'd pay.
That's correct.
So if you had a special event that you, like 4th of July, you would request most likely an additional service. And so that would be something that we would probably look at the costs of that and then transfer those costs to most likely the CCC for covering that expense on behalf of the district.
Cool.
Okay. May I have a motion, please?
I'll make the motion. I move the Board of Directors authorize the District Administrator to execute a consolidated contract with Republic Services, for waste management and recycling services throughout the Cordova Recreation and Park District.
Okay, thank you, Secretary Hewitt and Director Sloan. Roll call, please.
Director Sloan? Secretary Yearwood?
Aye.
Vice Chair Reyes?
Aye.
And Chair Lineback?
Aye.
Director Danzel is absent.
Okay, we move on to item H, Board of Directors items.
Thank you, Chair Lineback. Item H1A is training, and there was none in the last period, so we'll move on to item B, which is board member community activities and meetings report.
Okay.
I can start.
Would you,
I can start,
you would like to start?
help out.
Okay.
Since I have one, but it was a grand one. I'd like to let staff know and that the grand opening at Heron Landing Community Park was awesome. And I think it was really well attended for all the wind that was blowing. I don't know how many people there were, but it was crowded. Places where you had to stand or go in the, and bocce balls, people were already there playing. So it was a long wait. But, you know, with all the community outreach and the community interaction, I think everyone was very pleased with what we've come up with. And they are actually asking and looking forward to, where is the community center going to be located? I'm like, okay. And District Administrator Larkin showed us, you know, the area. It was also very nice for us to be honored to have Amy Berra, Congressman Amy Berra, and Supervisor Natoli, and Mayor Donald Terry, and other architects and partners. It was really, I think it was a true partnership and collaboration affair. So I wanted to commend staff for that and say that I was happy to be there. I was very happy to be there. Thank you.
Okay, Secretary Yearwood?
Let's see, on December 2nd, I was attended the breakfast with Santa and Mrs. Claus. Another big turnout, a great event. I like how we, or how they moved Santa into a different room for pictures and things like that. And it seemed to help with the flow, and the room was packed all morning. So just another big crowd there. I may have even been bigger this year. I don't recall what it was last year, but there was a lot of folks there. So well attended, nicely done again. And then I was also at the grand opening of Windy Heron Landing Community Park. Man. Director Danzel and I had a meeting afterwards, and I said, dude, my face is just, it's like, his eyes hurt because he didn't wear sunglasses, but he was blinded. But yeah, great park. You're right, folks were asking about, so where's that community center building going to be at? And when's that coming? How big is it? So, yeah, there was a lot of people there, and it was so spread out, it was kind of hard to gauge how many folks were out there. But as I heard from many people, the minute those fences came down that night prior, there were two young ladies that were playing on some of the structures. She goes, oh, yeah, we were in here last night. I said, not after dark, right? Oh, no, of course not. But, yeah, so. Yes, it was nice to see all the dignitaries that had come out and all the folks that came out, and the splash pad was a great success. Everybody really enjoyed that. So, and our raincoats do work very nice. They do. Yeah, so can't wait for the next one. When's the next park? What do we got on the books? Anything? I know, nothing of that size. So, but yes, well done by everybody, and it's great that a lot of the folks. One gentleman said, "Yeah, I bought my house here 11 years ago. Been waiting for that park." So, I said, "Yeah, I understand. I'm still trying to figure out where all that dirt went."
We spread it.
You spread all that dirt? There's a lot of dirt there.
That's why there's topography.
Oh.
Yeah, there
Oh.
There's little hills, and so we spread out.
I'm surprised they weren't 18 feet tall, but okay. That's all.
This sort of reminds me of that movie Sully. If anybody ever saw it, they asked the co-pilot, is there anything you would have done differently if you had to do this all over again? And he said, yeah, I would have done it in July. So that's the only thing. That was our plan originally. It would have been nice, but the amount of people were there, I was very pleased. The donuts were good. Thank you for the donuts. The whole thing about that is that a lot of people were waiting for it a long time, and they were really pleased to see that a lot of the play equipment wasn't just for a lot of young kids. Actually, 13, 14-year-old could go on that spider web stuff and get some good exercise out of it. And And I thought it was just excellent, the choice. It's probably one of the largest play areas we have and most diverse that I've seen in most of our parks, of the different apparatuses they have out there, especially that little trampoline in the ground. I thought that was kind of interesting. I know Pat liked it. Yeah. But it was just a long-awaited and special day, and I was just pleased that it finally came, and now we can all go visit that park, and beautiful tennis courts. I want to go there and play tennis tomorrow. I'll go back to also on November 28th, last month, I did attend the Breckham steering committee meeting. And I don't know, I've mentioned this to other people, but I did, my report was basically telling about the future meetings that the district will plan with the steering committees about Measure J and how it's going to be, rather than having one big community meeting again. So that's something that we need to talk to those user groups out there and plan some type of a presentation. Right. The next thing, I attended on December 5th, the Rancho Cordova Athletic Association. And a couple of things were very interesting that popped up on that. Brian Hendricks was also there, and he got some names. There was a woman that was looking to start a volleyball league, youth volleyball league, because it is one of the neglects in our system here in sports, especially when leading up to high school, that we don't have. And a lot of other people, they have to go to Folsom or out of the somewhere else, a travel thing to take advantage of it. And so I think that would be a fantastic thing if we could partner with whatever organization it is and have a volleyball place to do it. Maybe at Mather, I'm thinking so. Another one was they're going to kick off this youth basketball league, but it's going to be at Cordova High School, but it's going to be only targeting 5th and 6th graders. And I was wondering what happens after that. I mean, just why is it it seems like there's a certain amount of people that I guess once you get high school, well, there's no leagues you can play in if you're 14, 15, 16 years old. So that might be another idea that we can come up with, some type of furthering out a youth basketball program. Maybe even starting in 4th grade rather than just 5th and 6th. But that was basically it. And thank God we got Heron Landing open. I was just very pleased.
Okay, thank you. I would like to report that I did attend the district holiday party and employee recognition. It was a lot of fun. I love the way you get together with each other, the staff together, and you recognize each other and you have fun with each other, and you acknowledge each other. And it's really a really cohesive team, at least from my perspective. And I took advantage of knowing someone that used to work at Fulton El Camino and who's now here in the maintenance department, because, you don't always want to just talk to the management level, frankly. And, he just thinks it's a great place to work. And, feels like his, coworkers all support each other. And, he had nothing but positive, feelings about working at the Cordova Recreation and Park District. So that was really nice. And I got a little sneak preview of that year-end presentation that we saw tonight. It was a little bit different. It was a little more polished tonight, in fact, but there was some cute stuff in it, though, for instance, with the helicopter landing playing the MASH theme and stuff like that, that didn't make it into the final version, but it was still fun. Yeah. So it was a really enjoyable event, and everybody got a gift, and they tried to do a little bit of a game with the gifts and stuff, a little team building every opportunity, and I just love to see the teamwork. And then again, the grand opening of the Windy Landing Park. It was a great event. The public was very complimentary. I heard some questions, but there was never a hint of criticism in any of those questions. And it was all very positive, and people thought it was a beautiful park. And I think they're really looking forward to it being in their neighborhood. And it's big enough to support community members from outside their neighborhood, of course. But there was somebody in a scooter who mentioned to me that the bocce courts are accessible, and they had never seen that before. So, it was just a nice way to interact with the community and have them see their park district working for them. And so I loved that. So that's my report. Okay, so now we move on to item H2, board officers, appointments, elections, all kinds of stuff.
We have all kinds of stuff going on this evening. Thank you, Chair Lineback. Item H2A is to appoint 3 members to the Park Maintenance and Recreation Improvement District, PMRID, Citizens Oversight Committee. So as you heard briefly from the committee report, there are 3 seats that are up for appointment for the terms that are expiring December 31st. We advertised to the public, and we did receive 7 applications, but one of the people was disqualified due to the location of their residence. There have been amendments approved to the committee operating guidelines, and so we're trying over time to get the terms all lined up into 4-year staggered terms. And the nominating committee, as you heard, met on December 11th. They will have recommendations for you for the appointments, but just to explain the applications that we did receive, we received 1 applicant for the Larchmont Riviera East seat, 1 for the Rosemont seat, and 4 for the Rancho Cordova seat. So that's what we were looking at for consideration. The full board does make the decision on the appointments, so we included all of the applications for your review. And there is no fiscal impact to the district for these appointments. Thank you.
So shall we move?
Yes, I mean, the committee itself we came to a consensus. With the Rosemont seat, there was only 1 application. For the Larchmont Riviera, only 1 application, and both of them highly qualified. So, we have, no hesitancy in asking the full board to approve those 2. For the Rancho Cordova seat, there were 4 applications. We ultimately have decided to recommend to the full board that we move forward the incumbent Sandy Hicks, and then ask the other 3 applicants who was very exciting to see these applications, and they were highly qualified and, can bring some real energy to the district, to ask them if they would be so kind as to consider working with the Friends of Cordova Parks. But ultimately, our recommendation out of the committee is for Ryan Brown, Bonnie Dominy, and Sandy Hicks to be appointed by the full board.
No.
That would be Sandy Hicks.
No, Rancho Cordova had only 1 vacant. There's an existing, Rancho Cordova has 2, but one of them is still on board. And that is
Marilyn
Ham. Okay? So when you're ready, I can make a move.
Would you
when
like?
they're done with their
Yeah,
questioning.
have you, if there are any questions or comments from the board?
Friends of Cordova.
Yeah, there were 3.
I like to see when people step forward. And,
Right.
And
Right.
So it's a shame that we can't have them all participate, like a member at large or
Yeah.
a committee, at large or something. Just
Well, one of the things that, if you read their applications, it's really nice to see they're highly qualified. And I think strategically, as Chair Lineback and myself were on that committee, it was, we encouraged staff to ask them if they would be interested in serving on the board for the foundation, which is currently being, organized, right? And with the new bylaws to be able to make it a foundation that can bring in larger amounts of grant and resources. So we're hoping after tonight, they will approach them and they will ask them if they'd like to join us on this. Yeah, so that they can then hopefully participate, just like Director Lineback said, it's really good if you see the demographic of the applicants, it's good to see the diversity and all this, and to see that even their skills and their career paths. So it's nice to see that they're stepping up and wanting to be part of our organization.
Are we able, just as a point of order, able to make these nominations in one motion, or should we make 3 motions?
I would recommend doing the reappointments of the incumbents in one motion, and then the brand-new appointment in a separate motion.
Thank you. Okay,
So if you'd like, unless there are any other questions from our directors, I'll move that the Board of Directors reappoint Sandy Hicks to represent Rancho Cordova and Bonnie Domini to represent Larchmont Riviera East Committee, to the PMRID Oversight Committee for uncompensated 4-year term expiring on June 30th, 2021.
Thank you, Vice Chair Reyes.
2021.
I'll second.
Thank you, Secretary Yearwood. Roll call, please.
Director Sloan? Secretary Yearwood?
Aye.
Vice Chair Reyes?
Aye.
Chair Lineback?
Aye.
And Director Danzel is absent.
Okay, so if we could make another motion?
So I move that the Board of Directors appoint Ryan Brown, representing Rosemont, to the PMRID Oversight Committee for an uncompensated 4-year term expiring on June 30th, 2021.
Thank you, Vice Chair Reyes.
I'll second.
Thank you, Secretary Yearwood. Roll call, please.
Director Sloan?
Aye.
Secretary Yearwood?
Aye.
Vice Chair Reyes?
Aye.
Chair Lineback?
Aye.
And Director Danzel is absent.
Okay, so
Can I note that Bonnie is in the audience? In the audience, I just wanted to say congratulations and thank you for
again,
continuing
Bonnie.
service.
thank you for
Thank you.
continuing to be willing to
Yes.
serve.
Thank you again.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to item H2B.
Thank you. Item H2B is to reappoint 2 current members to the Board of Directors of the Friends of Cordova Parks Incorporated Charitable Foundation, and I'll turn it over to Recreation Superintendent Jill Nuns.
Good evening, Board. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you.
This evening, I'd like to recommend that the Board of Directors reappoint 2 of the current members, Andrew Maloof and Joyce Higdon, to the Friends of Cordova Parks, Inc. Board.
Okay, are there any questions or comments at this time? Motion, please.
I'll make the motion. I move the Board of Directors reappoint Andrew Maloof and Joyce Higdon to the Friends of Cordova Parks, Inc. Board of Directors for the uncompensated 1-year terms expiring December 31st, 2018.
Thank
I'll
you,
second that.
Secretary Yearwood. Thank you, Director Sloan. Roll call, please.
Director Sloan?
Aye.
Secretary Yearwood?
Aye.
Vice Chair Reyes?
Aye.
Chair Lineback?
Aye.
And Director Danzel is absent.
And then I'll make sure to I'll get the contact information from Danielle, and I'll make sure to contact those applicants
Yes.
that applied and reach out to them to see if they're interested in the Cordova Friends Board. So
Absolutely.
You got it.
Thank you
Thanks.
so much.
It's still information, I think.
For the Friends, it's in their bylaws, it's a 1-year appointment. So every December 31st, they get reappointed.
We're in the process of reorganizing the group, so we're looking at more of a foundation structure. So with that foundation structure, bylaw changes will come forward with that new way of operating that function. which may include an extension of a 1 year to more of a 2 year to 4 year type of term limit for those board members.
And it might be interesting for these more recent community members that have stepped up and shown interest in the Park District to take part in reorganizing a foundation and give something meaty to chew on, something really. Okay, so now we are moving on to item H2C.
Thank you. Item H2C is to appoint agency-designated representatives for closed session labor negotiations for the district administrator employment agreement. And as you know, in January of this year, the board entered into an agreement with Administrator Larkin. The board must provide him with an evaluation each year and may therefore after consider salary and compensation increases based on the outcome of the evaluation. I included the government code regarding these types of closed sessions. The board may meet with the agency designated representatives to discuss salaries, salary schedules, or compensation paid in the form of fringe benefits. However, prior to that closed session, there must be an open session which identifies the designated representatives. Now, in the past, what we have done is appointed a staff member to be this representative, but it was felt that that might not be an appropriate position to put the staff member in to be the primary negotiator for the administrator who supervises them. So we are recommending that the primary representative be a board member. Closed sessions held pursuant to this section also shall not include a final action on the salary or proposed compensation amendments. So there will be an item later on this agenda after closed session to consider that as well. The agency designated representatives will receive instructions from the board regarding labor negotiations, and Administrator Larkin will represent himself. As I mentioned, the primary representative may be a board member, and then a staff member may be present in order to discuss the agency's available funds and funding priorities. I also received a question about why this would not be a direct appointment by the chairperson. And just to give a little explanation on that, one board member does not have the authority to amend the employment agreement. And also when one board member is acting on behalf of all five, particularly in a situation that will have a fiscal impact to the district, it's good to note that the full board was in agreement on this action. So that's why we have the nomination and then a vote by the board instead of a straight appointment.
But we have an absent board member, so it doesn't matter.
No.
We still have a majority vote.
So at this time, I would actually like to make, unless there are any questions or comments, I would like to make a motion that the Board of Directors appoint Secretary Yearwood as the agency designated representative for the closed session labor negotiations for the District Administrator Employment Agreement.
Second.
Thank you, Vice Chair Reyes. Roll call, please.
Director Sloan,
Present. Aye.
Secretary Yearwood,
Aye.
Vice Chair Reyes,
Aye.
Chair Lineback,
Aye.
Director Danzel is absent. Is there going to be a staff representative as well that will be announced?
I do, no.
Okay.
No, unless, do we need to appoint Manager Goodell in case we have financial questions?
That would typically be the human resource manager would participate.
But she can't answer the financial questions, right?
She is prepared to.
Okay. Well, I'm finding this whole process different from before, so if appropriate, I guess I'll make a motion to nominate Human Resources Director Andrea White as the staff liaison.
I have to announce it before we go into closed session.
Okay.
So I just want to be clear that that's who will be listed as a representative.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We're just doing what we're told up here, people. Okay, we're moving on to item H2D.
Okay. Item H2D is to elect the board officers for 2018, the secretary, vice chairperson, and chairperson. Staff is recommending that the board of directors nominate and elect officer positions one at a time through separate motions. Per district policy, the board shall elect these officers to serve for a period of 1 year or until the election of their successors. The duties of each position is listed here in the staff report. And just to explain a little bit of the process, if the board chooses, the outgoing chairperson may pass the gavel to the incoming chairperson at the conclusion of this item. And then the new chairperson would run the remainder of the meeting. And the seating at the dais would not change until January. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, board, shall we do our jobs here?
Start with the secretary, right?
Yes.
I nominate Director Brian Danzel to serve as Secretary of the Board of Directors for a term of 1 year and until the election of his successor. His successor, darn it.
Thank you, Secretary Yearwood. I will second that nomination. Roll call, please.
Director Sloan,
Aye.
Secretary Yearwood,
Aye.
Vice Chair Reyes,
Aye.
Chair Lineback,
Aye.
and Director Danzel is absent.
I'd like to make the
Okay.
next one. I'd like to nominate Director Yearwood to serve as Vice Chairperson of the Board of Directors for a term of 1 year or until the election of his successor.
Thank you, Director Sloan.
Second.
Thank you, Vice Chair Reyes. Roll call, please.
Director Sloan,
Aye.
Secretary Yearwood,
Aye.
Vice Chair Reyes,
Aye.
Chair Lineback,
Aye.
and Director Danzel is absent.
Okay, and lastly, I think that I will nominate Vice Chair Reyes to serve as chairperson of the Board of Directors for a term of 1 year and until the election of his or her successor.
I'll second.
Thank you, Vice Chair Yearwood. Is that correct?
You did get it already.
Roll call, please.
Director Sloan,
Aye.
Vice Chair Yearwood,
Aye.
Presumptive Chair Reyes,
Aye.
outgoing Chair Lineback,
Aye.
and Director Danzel or Secretary Danzel is absent.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to move the gavel at this time upon the permission of the newly elected chair to Chairperson Reyes.
Thank you very much, Chair Lineback. I would like, on behalf of the board, I would like to thank Director Lineback for chairing in the last year. The chairman position always calls for a little more time in preparation and taking care of our agenda and also in representing us out there. So I really do appreciate your chairmanship, and it was a good year. It was a very good year. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. I wanted to thank the board for being understanding of my being a novice at this position, and I learned a great deal, and I feel like I was able to help the board, and the board was able to help me, and the staff was able to help me, and so it was an interesting year in which I learned a lot, and I appreciate the opportunity. So there you have it.
Did a good job there. Thank you. Okay, so we will continue with item I, comments by staff.
Okay, I'm just going to go over some highlights from the last month. I attended a Soil-Borne Farms Community Partnership Retreat. We discussed their vision and goals related to food and resources in the community. They talked about food deserts in Rancho Cordova. It was a really interesting conversation. Also, the Williamson property did come up as a potential opportunity for us to explore in the near future. We had a staff holiday and recognition celebration on December 12th. We had the staff and a board member purchase gifts this year for homeless children in the community as a part of the district's community service outreach initiative that we're starting. So I wanted to thank Gail, who really organized this amazing opportunity for the staff to really give back in a very authentic way to the community this year. It was really nice. We collected about 50 gifts, 30 families. So it was a really great way to celebrate the holidays and give back. So I'm really proud of the staff that participated in that. And of course attended the Breakfast with Santa and the Heron Landing opening. Under the clerk of the board, we received your awards tonight. Thank you and congratulations to the board members. And also the district received notification on December 11th that Secretary Yearwood has been appointed to Sacramento LAFCO Special District Advisory Committee. The first meeting is scheduled for January 30th. You're going to be a busy guy next year. So congratulations, that's great. I'm glad we have a representative. Also, very exciting news. We are now going to be implementing Board Docs, which is an agenda management software system. Clerk Jones attended a 2-day training and implementing the training, followed by a cross-divisional staff training on November 30th. To look at the new Board Docs automated agenda system. The system will streamline all aspects of our agenda and minutes, production, and enhance the public's ability to search for a variety of archived documents. The agendas and minutes will have a completely new look coming forward, and the Board Docs will be empowering the staff to integrate new technology and create efficiencies. The system test will begin in January, so just be prepared for a new look for your agendas and the minutes coming forward in the new year. In budget and financing, we're in the dry period financing. The district is experiencing dry period borrowing from the county currently and through January. The good news is financially we're projecting, we show that our available funding will be sufficient enough to satisfy our payroll and warrant obligations until the property and assessment revenues are received in late January to reimburse the borrowing and continue operations. So thank you, Matt, for keeping on top of that. You're doing a great job with that. Also, Matt has been quite the creative one in creating forms for us. We've done a lot of great researching and best practices and had gone through some trainings. So Matt was able to create out of those trainings some budget adjustment forms, a responsibility assignment matrix template, which was a tool that we learned how to use through our time management training at a retreat that we had, a key performance indicator form, and a time management model, which is being used on a every other week basis. When they meet with me, they come with a little matrix that kind of succinctly talks about where they are on certain projects that they're working on. So it's been a great thing, and Matt is quite a guru at creating forms, so thank you for that. In human resources, we are in recruitment mode. Our facility supervisor position, the recruitment went out November 15th and will close on January 5th. We've already received several qualified candidates, and applications will be looking to interview in early February. Marketing and communications specialist, we talked about that earlier this evening. And then also a part-time clerk 2 will be looking to hire for our park planning and development, which is a bit swamped with all of this development going on here, so we're excited to get some support for them. Also, the personnel policies, the employee handbook work group has met, discussed and reviewed draft personnel policies. These edits will be discussed at the next policy committee meeting for review. So Andrea's really launching that, and the work team associated with that is really analyzing it and doing a great job. In park services, we're doing some upgrades at the golf course and the grounds building. They have removed and chipped about 24 dead trees off the golf course, removed brush piles in the vacant lot that we're going to be renting in that area. And then also they were successful building a new storage shed at the golf course courtyard. They're also working on irrigation system backflow devices to hopefully save us some money in water. In the Recreation Department, Hagan Community Barn hosted a activity alongside the Sacramento Valley Live Steamers, Railroad Museum, Santa Train. They had a little activity during that time for folks to not only take a train ride, but come over and do an arts and craft projects and have fun with cupcake and Oreo. Can't forget Oreo. Speaking of cupcake and Oreo, they were the highlight of this year's tree lighting at Village Green Park. They were in the manger area of that, so that was kind of cool to see them there and have entertainment. The hideout numbers are growing each month. In preschool, the kids were able to go to the fish hatchery in mid-November, despite the rain, and students and parents had a wonderful time on a self-guided tour. This morning, we had the opportunity to go to their winter celebration. It was probably the cutest thing I've ever seen in my life. These little kids did a little concert, and then they had some activities for the parents and kids to participate in, and special shout out to Jerry, who was our Santa this year for the preschool event, and he did an amazing job. He's a good Santa, so thank you, Jerry.
Santa with a southern accent.
Yes, he plays the role well. Southern Santa. In the Senior Center activities on Wednesday, November 8th, the center held an annual Veterans Day celebration. They had approximately 105 guests, with 37 of those being veterans. On Saturday, November 18th, they won a bus trip to San Francisco for a day of shopping in Union Square and Pier 39. 29 participants came from CRPD, 13 from Orangevale Parks and Rec, and 11 from Sunrise. So it's a great collaborative program that we have going on with other Parks and Rec districts in the area. Village Green tree lighting was a great success this year, minus the rain, but it went off without a hitch. And as I said, Oreo and cupcake were the highlights, in my opinion. Mather Sports Complex, the Sierra Valley Softball League 70-plus-year-olds started their winter season on November 2nd. This league consists of 8 teams traveling from areas like Woodland and Placerville. These games take place at Mather during the matinee hours from 10 a.m. until 1 p.m. The Winter Doubleheader Softball League is in full swing. There is a total of 51 teams this season, which is an increase of 11 teams from this time last year. In Park Planning and Development, we are really moving forward with this pool project. So it's kind of our heads are spinning a little bit, but the project is moving top speed. The kickoff meeting between LPA Consultants and CRPD was held on November 16th. A program meeting was held on November 30th. And just today, we had a meeting to talk about the draft market analysis for the project. So I'm really happy that we are really hitting the ground and speed running towards this. So the development projects also on the Sacramento County project, Jackson Township is active. CRPD staff in Jackson Township representatives met on November 9th to discuss the park system and fees for the proposed JT development. JT representatives and CRPD are coordinating to schedule another meeting in January, and CRPD received update planning and finance documents from the South Mather New Bridge development projects and the Sacramento County Planning, requesting review comments by January 5th. So development is really taking off, and I really just have to commend Laura for her ability to take on these very large bodies of work and review this work and be able to respond to them in a very professional and timely manner. So I really just hats off to you for being able to do that so professionally. You really are a great asset for us, so thank you. We had the Heron Landing Community Park opening, and then below are some updates for our grants. To note, the Neil Orchard Center, Outdoor Fitness Center we discussed earlier today, and then also the Sacramento Housing and Redevelopment Agency for the Rosemont Community Park. We have fully executed agreements received. Community outreach is scheduled actually you went to the Rosemont Community Outreach, or to the meeting, and got feedback from that group, and we will be activating that project for the design of that. Some improvement projects that we're working on, we mentioned earlier, and thank you for approving those. And then if I can bring your attention to the special event invitations. We've already had the Heron Landing. We have a polar bear plunge that staff are going to be participating in as frozen bananas this year, so should be a good photo op for anyone, me included. And then one of note that wasn't on this list when it was produced is on February 15th. I know it's a little premature, but at 6:30 we will have our Cordova Pool Community Outreach Meeting. It will be at Hagen Community Park, and we'll be soliciting community input at that time. So that will be our first kickoff meeting for the community to give us their input on the pool. It's going to be February 15th at 6:30 at Hagen Community Park, or Community Center, sorry. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, District Administrator Larkin. All right, let's move on to.
I have one question about a meeting that, was there anything that you had to report about that meeting you had with the shooting center owner? Anything that materialized?
Sure. I did meet with the shooting center operator, their lawyer and our lawyer, and we discussed the terms that we were looking to have in a new agreement. The meeting went very well. He understood our terms as to be reasonable. They walked away and they'll be coming back to us with whether or not they're interested in pursuing a new agreement, or if they feel like we should just go to the RFP and then apply if they feel like it's something that they want to apply through that process. So we have had the meeting, and it was successful in that we walked away with a clear understanding of what our expectations are for a new agreement to take place.
All right, any other questions? All right, so let's move on to item J.
Thank you, Chair Reyes. Item J1 is correspondence, articles, and public outreach. We have 3 letters: the LAFCO Special District Advisory Committee nomination, the LAFCO Special District Commissioner selection letter, and the LAFCO Special District Advisory Committee selection welcome letter for Vice Chair Yearwood.
Good job.
There were 9 design pieces, and then we have the Senior Center newsletter.
Any comments, questions from the directors? Okay, so let's move on to item K.
Thank you, Chair Reyes. Item K1 is regarding the regular board meeting on January 17th, 2018, and we will be doing the nominations and appointments to the board committees for 2018 at that meeting.
Okay.
And then you have the calendar for December and January for your review.
All right, any questions or comments from our directors? Okay, so with that, we will move into item L, which is closed session.
Thank you. Item L1 is a public employee performance evaluation pursuant to California Government Code Section 54957, titled District Administrator. Item L2 is conference with labor negotiators pursuant to California Government Code Section 54957.6. The agency designated representatives are Vice Chair Yearwood and Resource Manager Andrea White. The unrepresented employee is the District Administrator.
All right, with that, I would call a recess to the closed session community boardroom.